Okay, we are at the Mid-America Truck Show, Louisville, Kentucky, 2023. And man, as always, you're seeing lots of people here. All kinds of people, lots of truck drivers, lots of things in the industry. I know these episodes that we're doing from the truck show are going to come out, of course, later after it's over. But I would recommend if nobody's there, if you haven't been to this Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville, Kentucky, you need to make plans. And don't just make a plan to drive through, stop in for a couple hours, because that's not going to work. You're going to have to stop in for a couple of days. There's so much to see here at the truck show. And Oakley, we're going to be here every year. We're here every year, and we seem to have a bigger presence every year too. So I encourage you. I actually talked to some of our owner-operators that you guys have never been here, and I was amazed you hadn't. And I think you really enjoy it. It's cutting-edge technology, products, just all kinds of stuff here. Aero Truck Sales has been in business for over 60 years and a longtime partner of Oakley Trucking and the Oakley Podcast. Trey Visor and Keith Wilson do a great job at putting you in the right truck to fit your needs and our needs here at Oakley. They carry all makes and models to choose from with on-site financing through transport funding. So whether you are a seasoned owner-operator or a first-time buyer, be sure to contact Keith Wilson at Aero Truck Sales at 573-216-6047 and tell him you heard it on the Oakley Podcast. And I have actually captured one of those guys that has a awesome product, if you could say product, that has an awesome ministry here, and I want to visit with him a little bit. And his name is
Marshall.
Marshall Wright, and his name is Marshall Wright, and he is with the Power of God Ministries.
Power of God Trucking Ministries.
Power of God Trucking Ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to visit with him a minute and talk about what he does here, not only at Mid-America, and is probably going to be here every year or here next year, but also what he does on a daily basis. So let's get started with this. Marshall, if you would, introduce yourself to our listeners out here, kind of who you are, where you're from, what's going on with you.
Okay. Well, my name is Marshall Wright, and believe it or not, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky.
Hometown.
Yeah. 2 syllables, Louisville.
Okay.
Not Louisville, not Louisville, Louisville, Kentucky. I want to get into sort of how I started the ministry, and that will kind of give some of the background on myself as well. So, again, I was born and raised here in Kentucky, and about 1974, I believe, 1975, my brother and I was 11 years old, and I think he was 16 years old, visited probably the 4th Mid-America Truck Show here in Louisville.
Really?
Yes. And to show you how things have changed, the truck show itself was only in the pavilion. That was the truck show, was just the pavilion. If you can imagine that, to where we are now today with all the wings and everything else. So it was a very small truck show. You were supposed to be an owner-operator or a driver in order to get in the truck show. Some guy in a suit came up and said, "You guys really want to get in? Don't cause any trouble, and we'll let you in." My brother and I love trucks. Okay. My brother joined the Army, became a truck driver in the Army, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to follow his footsteps, join the Army, be a truck driver in the Army, get out and drive big rigs. Our heroes were Will and Sonny Pruitt. If you remember the show Moving On, that was the big deal back then in the 70s. And I just remember just having such a love for trucks and such a love for the truck driver. In my neighborhood, there were a total of 5 truck drivers. I grew up in the west end of Louisville. There were a total of 5 truck drivers that actually all of them were OTR. They lived in my neighborhood. They would take off, and you wouldn't see them for 3-4 weeks. Okay, and so and all these guys I really, really enjoyed. I remember Mr. Juniors drove for a company called Liquid Transport. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but
Yeah.
he's hauling chemicals and acid. That was the big thing. He always hauled acid. And I remember him. He was just such a nice guy. His wife was nice, and used to go cut grass for him for free and all that kind of stuff. So it was great. It was really that my impression of truck drivers back then was really great. My best friend, guy by the name of Bubby Gerber, his dad was a long haul truck driver, and he had a conventional Kenworth conventional. It was a two-tone blue. I believe it was a 13-speed or an 18-speed. I can't remember, but it was one of the most beautiful trucks I'd ever seen. And he would park it right in front of his house, which was a block away from me. And so
this was instilled in you early.
Yeah. Oh,
at a
yeah.
young
Oh,
age.
yeah. Trucking has been a part of me, and it will probably always be a part of me. Now, how God used that is a story in itself.
Right.
Because, well, long story short, now I'll tell you a little bit of my history. I ended up enlisting in the Coast Guard. And that's where I encountered the Lord Jesus Christ. I was on a 378-foot cutter out in the middle of the Barents Sea, and I had somebody share the gospel with me, and it totally changed my life. You know, it wasn't in a church setting. It wasn't in the typical receiving Jesus setting. It was out in the middle of the ocean, 30-foot waves. We're out there with the crabbers, you know, if you ever see Deadliest Catch.
So you're out in the middle of the Bering Sea.
Yeah.
And this is where it took place.
And somebody shared the gospel with me. They talked to me about Jesus Christ and what, you know, what he had to offer me. And I accepted the challenge. I accepted Jesus right there out in the middle of the ocean. And I went to bed a sinner and woke up, you know,
saved
and blessed by God, you know. So, and it was traumatic. It really was. I mean, you know, I was a sailor at the time. And so, you know, the whole sailor's model, you know, a woman in every port, you know, typically you would hit a port, everybody would go to the bar, you know, get something to drink, et cetera, rooting corrals and getting into bar fights and all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, we hit port and I'm looking for a Bible study. Change, man. And so I'll fast forward a little bit because the Coast Guard, I mean, God told me something, you know, by his spirit that I'll never forget as long as I live. He said, Marshall, if you just hang with me, I will turn your life upside down in a way that you never thought possible. I will open up doors that you never thought possible. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I just figured I'd go and hang with God. I'd just do what God said, and I'd just get into his word. I would start fellowshipping with him and all that. And my doors opened up to me that were impossible to open up. Long story short, I ended up a pilot in the Coast Guard, which was just, it's a story within itself. It's like 3 podcasts, okay?
Wow.
Yeah. It's a really amazing story about how God made this happen, and God put people in my life to help it happen. Just really, really interesting. So I ended up a pilot in the Coast Guard flying C-130s, and I did that for about 7.5 years. And retired from the Coast Guard, and this is kind of where the trucking gets in a little bit, because I retired from the Coast Guard, and I retired right after 9/11. And if you remember, all of the major carriers were starting not to hire because 9/11 had happened, and
major airline carriers,
major airline carriers like American, Delta, Southwest, you know, all of them said we're not going to hire anymore because people got afraid to fly, and so ticket sales start slowing down, et cetera, et cetera. So I talked to my wife. You know, I just retired from the Coast Guard. I was actually on terminal leave, and I talked to her, and she said, "Well, why don't you go to truck driving school?" I said, "That's a good idea." I said, "I like trucks. You know I like trucks. Yeah, I'll do that." So I went and got my CDLA, and after that, I started driving dump trucks. What is that? Tri-axles, quad axles, 22-wheeler, tractor trailer dump trucks, and we hauled everything. I mean, I was at construction sites. I was hauling for, you know, housing complexes. I was hauling gravel. Never hauled out asphalt, although they wanted me to, and never hauled poop either, and they wanted me to do that too at the waste facility. And I'm like, that's okay. And so, so that was kind of my introduction into actually being a driver. And one of the things that I saw, even
how old are you at this time?
Right now I'm 60.
I mean, at the time you start driving this truck.
It would have been 38. 38 years old.
Okay, so you've done Army, Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, just Coast Guard.
Just Coast Guard. Okay, just Coast Guard.
Coast Guard, 20 years.
20 years from there.
Started out enlisted, ended up retiring as an officer.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And now you're got your CDL.
And I'm driving
loving
trucks.
life and driving trucks. and what happens next?
Southwest Airlines gives me a call and says, hey, we got a class date for you. Do you want to come? And actually it happened 2 days before Christmas, so I call it my Christmas present of 2001. And so that was 21 years ago that I started flying for Southwest. I've been a commercial airline pilot for 21 years. Absolutely loving it. I'm an evaluator at Southwest as well.
Currently?
Currently.
Okay.
I'm a check pilot. I do type ratings in the 737. I also do evaluation rides for our pilots in the 737 as well.
Lube Zone has opened a new location in Statesville, North Carolina. It's located north of Statesville on Highway 77, just west of Exit 59. Lube Zone services both single trucks and truck fleets, so whether you're driving through or you have a trucking company nearby, Lube Zone are the experts to turn to. Lube Zone's specialty is full-service oil changes that take approximately 30 to 40 minutes. They also offer tractor-trailer grease, gearbox service, generator service, reefer service, and DOT inspections. They also go the extra mile when it comes to quality control. What does that mean? That means your semi-truck is checked not just once, but twice to ensure all service and parts are good to go. Lube Zone does this so you can rest easy knowing that your truck is in top condition. No other service center knows semi-trucks better than Lube Zone. Check out lubezone.com for all their locations, and when you go in there, tell them you heard it on the Oakley Podcast.
So that's a part of my life that's kind of constant, at least for the next 4.5 years, or unless God says something different. But in the meantime, I started coming back to the Mid-America Truck Show. Probably 2000, I would say about 2005, I started coming and visiting the truck show again. It's just something I was like, man, I really got to see this truck show. I got to see this truck show. It's good stuff. And I started coming by, and that's when I met a guy by the name of Gary Rayborn. And I'm gonna shorten up this story a little bit.
I met Gary.
Yeah.
He actually sat with us last year.
Oh, okay.
Here, and we interviewed him.
Yeah, well, he runs Lonesome Road Ministries, and what a wonderful guy. I met him, I talked to him, and I told him my desire to really want to minister to truckers. And I really saw a need for that when I was driving dump trucks, and that wasn't even OTR, but you could still see that, people need Jesus. People need a place that they can come to where they can get their lives straight, okay? And it starts with me. If I can be straight, and if my life can be straight, then it's going to affect my wife, it's going to affect my children, it's going to affect my environment, it's going to affect everything. And so this is why it was so important for me to want to get the gospel to individual truckers and just try to get that message out. And I really didn't know how. And I started working with Gary Rayborn and also Channel 21 Ministries, which was founded by Daryl Spicer, Chaplain Daryl Spicer. And those two ministries, Lonesome Road and Channel 21, now are together. When I joined up, or when I started partnering up with them, if they were two separate ministries. So I was really sort of under or partnering up with Daryl Spicer at the time and Channel 21 Ministries. They had road chaplains, and so we became road chaplains. We also started our ministry, Power God Trucking Ministries, as well. But we were really dealing with the road chaplains for Channel 21. We ended up being on Channel 21's board and also managing the road chaplains, probably almost 60 road chaplains in all. And most of them, probably 90%, were OTR drivers. And we were managing them, making sure that they were discipled, making sure they had the proper training, making sure they were equipped to do what they needed to do. Yes, had the tools for the job. Exactly. So we started doing that. And long story short, we developed our own chaplain training program, which we've implemented this year. We have about 20 students, and And so it's a 16-week course, at least as it is right now, 16 weeks. And it's
Really, that's good.
Yeah. So we believe, my wife and I believe that the best way to have somebody out here is to have them trained up, to be equipped to know, how to handle the different issues that you're going to come across. I mean, we talk to drivers all the time. So we run a trucker church at the TA in Forestdale, Missouri, off of I-70. Mm-hmm. So every Sunday we're in there, we preach the gospel in the TV room, just preach a service. And we have 1, 2, maybe 5 drivers, they just want to sit and listen, whatever. So we deal with, my thing is we deal with all kind of drivers. We deal with everybody. We don't care who you are. Give you an example. We just talked to a guy yesterday at our booth who was a Sikh, from Sikhism religion. He's a Sikh. And we're sitting there talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it was just so unique. We've talked to Muslims. We've talked to Buddhists. We've talked to everybody. My thing is whosoever will listen, I'm going to open up my mouth about Jesus Christ, and we're going to talk.
That's awesome. What is that? I'm interested in that 16-week course. Uh-huh. So that's somebody that wants to help you out on the road. They take a 16-week course to where they have all the tools. They're kind of certified to be able to do the job on the road. Is that what that is?
So, yes, it in part. So we're doing our chaplaincy program in 3 phases. Number 1, training. Number 2 is certification. Okay. So we're actually about 2 years ago, we actually set on a chaplain certification board for the church that we go to, and we had to. There are state requirements for chaplains. Well, at least in Virginia, when we were living in Virginia. And so we had to take those requirements and set up an actual certification board. We're taking that knowledge that we got from that experience, which it was a handful. It was a lot of work. We're taking that knowledge and everything we did to put that together, and we're putting together our own certification board under our ministry. So first we train, then we'll certify chaplains, and then eventually we're going to actually develop our own road chaplains under Power God Trucking Ministries. And I was just talking to, I don't know if you know Mark Hewitt from Association of Christian Truckers. Uh-huh. He's got a booth here as well. And he just came up to me yesterday and talked to me about actually forming an alliance so that he could get his people trained because he has some quote-unquote chaplains as well, and he wants some training as well. So
that's a great plan. I mean, that's the way you're working to do that and to develop these chaplains and then disperse and conquer.
Yes. Like
the disciples.
Well, the drivers need it, and I think
that's something that goes. We all need it, but you definitely drivers need it too because there's a lot of alone time there.
Yes.
That's a lot of windshield time that your mind can work on you, in a lot of different ways. And I think it's a great way to have that opportunity to be able to communicate with somebody like yourself or your road chaplains. It's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah. And we're not pushy. we're really not. We engage a driver. We usually give them a packet of information. Usually it'll have a CD with our podcast on it, and on that CD we have a QR code as well because we realize that most of the trucks today don't have CD players. Right. So we're still in that transition as well, trying to get away from CDs, but they're just easy to give out, and we got a bunch of them. So so I'm like, I'm going to expend this supply of CDs I have until it's all out, and then we'll make a card or something.
Yeah, that's great. What do you hope to get out of the Mid-America Truck Show?
Well, the Mid-America Truck Show for us, it's one of the biggest truck shows, number one. We get to talk to a lot of different vendors. So not only do we get to talk to drivers, which is our primary concern, but we also get to talk to some owner-operators, some either owner-operators or owners of trucking companies, which we've talked to quite a few with, and say, hey, we've got supplies that we can give your organization. We can give your organization to supply your drivers with. We can be that source of supply. We get tons of supplies from all kind of groups. Distribution Good News Distribution, Truckers Friend Network. We get tons of supplies that we can give out, and so we're always trying to give out those supplies to a driver. So if we can talk to like a truck owner or a company owner or a company exec, that's great too. So you get that part of it. And also there are, believe it or not, and this happened yesterday, there are companies out here that have a great product, of something that they're doing for drivers that's pretty good, and we can form alliances with that. Give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's one company here that's pretty familiar, kind of akin to OIDA, kind of that kind of organization. But what they have is they have a free site where drivers can go, any driver can go to and don't have to pay, and you can tie your YouTube page to their page, so that they have all these topics where a driver can click on and go to different videos and different topics and different religions and all that, and your YouTube page can pop up on there so they can see what you have to offer. I think that's a good alliance. I think that's a good deal.
Oakley Trucking is a 100% owner-operator company. We specialize in hopper bottom, end dump, and pneumatic trailers. We provide the trailer free of charge, and you provide the truck. We have a large customer base that reaches the whole United States as well as parts of Canada. Our owner-operators live anywhere from Texas to North Carolina to Pennsylvania to Wisconsin and everywhere in between, and we get them home weekends. We take it seriously when you join Oakley Trucking because we need you to be successful. Oakley offers great benefits and competitive mileage pay, so you know that when your wheels are turning, you're generating money no matter if you're loaded or empty. We understand that you want to make a good living and that you make our living. We only take on independent contractors, and to be honest with you, we are very particular on who we lease on. You must have a good driving record, good work history, and clean, dependable truck. So if you're interested in Oakley Trucking or just want some more information, you can go to oakleytrucking.com, listen to our weekly podcast, The Oakley Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
So I'm starting to meet a lot of people like that too. I'm like this. I don't really care what the technology is. I don't care what the method is, as long as we're getting out the gospel and we're getting it out in a way where people can understand it and accept it.
Well, now we were talking before we started here. You're getting it out through your own podcast.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So we started podcasting finally, and it's been a challenge for quite a number of reasons. We're on Podomatic right now, but what we're trying to do, and the main thrust of what we're doing right now, and we hope to have it done by June, is to have our own internet radio station. And that's what we've been working on for probably the last 6 months. And it seems easy. I mean, it's easy to set up. It's just, radio is a content-driven deal, just like podcasting and everything else. So what we hope to do is have our podcast on our radio station along with other podcasts as well and other ministries as well. So that's the main thrust of why we're doing a podcast, but we also do video casting, and we have a YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're doing that as well. So you can reach all of that. We've got links to everything at our website, www.pgtmin.org.
And we'll put it, of course, as this comes out, we'll put it down below, and everybody can have access to get to you.
Sure.
Check you out and check out your podcast and your website and everything else. Fantastic story,
man. It's been
story.
Good. It's been good. I all I can say honestly, my whole testimony is God is good.
Yep.
And He has been directing my life. He's been directing my wife's life, and we're just having a blast out here. We really are. And the more drivers we meet, the more I know, hey, this is what we need to do. We need to be out here.
So before I quit here, it wouldn't be right if I didn't ask one of these questions because any interesting, quick stories in the Coast Guard that you could share with us? I think Coast Guard's fascinating. Is there? Did you rescue somebody out there? Some crazy fisherman got out there and ran out of gas, or a boat was sinking, or was that all just training you did kind of stuff?
Oh, no. Coast Guard, unlike the other services, and I'm not putting down the other services, okay? I like my service members, my service brothers, I call them. and sisters. But the Coast Guard, probably the difference between the Coast Guard and all the other services, and this is really true, is most of the time, if you're in the Coast Guard, if you go on a mission, it's going to be a live mission. It's going to be, it's not going to be training. It's going to be, hey, there's a real rescue out there. I'll give you an example. So I get to Coast Guard Air Station in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and, they have a training syllabus for the C-130. I just come from Little Rock, Arkansas, from Air Force training, so I'm a qualified C-130 pilot. Now I've got to become a search and rescue pilot, get qualified search and rescue. The day I got qualified, the next day I had alert duty, for search and rescue. Starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 11 o'clock at night, boom, search and rescue alarm goes off. We got to launch. And there's a sailing vessel 1,000 miles from, basically 1,000 miles east of Norfolk, Virginia. And we got to go out to him and we got to rescue him.
Oh, my.
And he had become becalmed, and there was a hurricane coming up, and he was trying to figure out what he needed to do and how, because he couldn't move and his kicker motor wouldn't start. That was my first search and rescue mission in the Coast Guard. And I'll never forget it, because what ended up happening, we found a freighter that was nearby. He rode over to him. Well, he ended up picking up the whole boat on davits, picking up the whole boat and the crew and taking them to Greece. So he got rescued.
Got rescued. Wow. Fantastic story. It's always good. I just enjoy those kind of stories like that. And it's, by serving in the armed forces, I'm so appreciative of you guys.
Thank you.
Giving your life to do that. And for 20 years you did that. And I just, it humbles me because, I didn't do it. And I respect you guys, kind of like truck drivers. I respect the truck drivers, even though I can't drive one of those things, but that's how they make my living. And I really appreciate the job that they do. And I appreciate the job that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Reaching out to the drivers and all the truck drivers out there, because, one thing we need, even if we are born again Christians, we need Jesus every day.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because the enemy is, the devil is everywhere.
Yes.
And,
yes.
he can
Yes,
get up in you. You got to be careful. So,
Yep.
Well, thank you for sharing your information and your story with us here at the Oakley Podcast. I really do appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the show. Hope any way we can help get the word out. The message to our guys. Let us know. And if you guys have questions about the Power of God Trucking Ministries. I'm sorry. Power of God Trucking Ministries. If you guys have questions for Marshall, let me know. I'll be glad to, if you can go to his website and get all that, or you can send it to me, and I'll be glad to pass it on to you, and you can get back with us.
Okay. All right. That sounds good.
Thanks a lot, man.
They can also sign up on the website. They can email us from the website. So we're available. We've got our number, our website number on there, and our phone number on there, and everything else. So we're available and we're reachable.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining me on the Oakley Podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me,
You're
sir.
welcome.